Folks in Cheyenne figured she had it coming, sinking like that. That's the first whisper that hit my ears when Lila Harper tumbled into the Platte River, half the settlement chuckling in her wake. The sun scorched fierce, the current chilled deep, and the expression etched on her features screamed she understood. No rescue was on the horizon. Except one fella stepped up, a fella the locals dubbed icy as a January stone. A fella who hadn't laid a finger on another living being since his spouse passed 7 winters prior. Ethan Black, 46 homesteader, tough as boot leather and forged like the sort of storm you don't dare challenge more than once. He was patrolling the river's rim when he caught her slide. She'd been hauling a hamper of mended blouses. The lads on Main Avenue had been hollering taunts her way once more, nicknaming her Soggy Lila, claiming she forever drew moisture, perspiration, sobs, drizzle, whatever they could spin into mockery. Lila was just 23, far too fresh to be ground down so, too tender to shuffle with her posture hunched as if each inhale might sting. Yet the outpost had branded her worthless. Poor soul. Waif in a second-hand frock, palms calloused from stitching for neighbors who scarcely muttered gratitude. Ethan spotted her plunge. He vaulted from the saddle in a fluid drop, splashed into the flow, and snagged her arm before the rush could snag her hem. Her blouse drenched in an instant, molding close, her bosom heaving quick, her locks plastered over her cheeks. She gulped air as he drew her near, stunned, quivering, panting ragged. He braced her firm with those massive palms that seemed primed to snap a brute in two, yet somehow cradled her like delicate porcelain. His tone rumbled soft, right by her temple. Hold steady. You're safe now. Just inhale slow. But she couldn't quite catch her breath, not at first. Her mouth quivered, her gaze stretched wide, and then she let it slip, unbidden. You're soaking me through. The words hung there, stalling him a beat, perhaps 'cause they echoed something unintended. Perhaps 'cause it marked the initial chat tossed his way like that in ages. And perhaps 'cause the entire hamlet gawked from the shore, chuckling, jabbing fingers, murmuring low. Ethan's hold firmed up, not to possess her, not to humiliate, but to prop her steady while the world schemed to drag her down. She tilted her chin up at him, her words wobbling. Why'd you pull me out? He met her stare, chin locked, gaze shadowed. 'Cause somebody oughta done it ages ago. He steered her to dry ground, one arm looped round her waist, his mount slurping water serene nearby. Lila lingered there, rivulets tracing her sheer linen top. Ethan streamed wet from belt to boots. The crowd eyed them like they'd beheld blasphemy. And smack in that instant, a spark flickered between them. A flicker neither grasped just yet. A flicker that Harlan Crow, the meanest soul in Wyoming, was fixin' to twist against 'em both. But Lila hadn't a clue. Not one bit. Not yet. Here's the hook gnawing at you. If an entire settlement's already pegged a lady as trash, what unfolds when the lone gent they dread declares she's worth the world? Lila kept trembling long after Ethan hauled her from the current. Icy drips trailed her jaw. Her linen top hugged fierce. The murmurs lingered on the bank. They weren't murmuring mercy. Ethan shrugged off his jacket. Toasty, weighty, scented of saddle and pine. She wrapped it snug round her frame and dropped her gaze low. Maybe, if she dodged their eyes, they'd quit pinning her down. But Cheyenne kin never quit gawking once they'd latched on a fresh mark. Ethan guided her toward his gelding, easy-like, tender, as if she might shatter underfoot. "You holdin' up?" he murmured. She dipped her head, but her mouth whispered otherwise, even as her nod lied yes. That's when Harlan Crow sauntered from the Silver Spur Tavern. He strutted like the whole spread was his birthright. On certain days, it was. Harlan commanded coin, acres, spring claims, and roughnecks who trailed him for gratis rotgut. He flashed a smirk that spooked the upright and a rage that ground wranglers to grit. The instant he spied Lila bundled in Ethan's jacket, he bared teeth, a lazy, cruel curl. Well, reckon who's splashin' fresh tricks to drench herself? Lila locked up. Ethan didn't flinch. He eased ahead of her, wordless warning, just shielding Harlan with a barrier of sinew and restraint. Harlan despised restraint. It shrank him down. Harlan edged nearer. "You know, she punched the clock at the seamstress over yonder this dawn." Ethan gave a single tilt. "Won't for long." They booted her to the curb, claimed she shamed the joint, said she tarnished the ladies, said gents ogled overmuch. Harlan barked a laugh. Picture that? A chit not worth a dime turning a full town scarlet. Lila edged rearward, but her heels skidded in the muck. Ethan steadied her quick, his grip sure on her forearm. "Easy does it." Harlan cocked his brow like he was appraising stock. "Dropped your gig, darling. That stings. But I got room at my spread. Swing by. Labor for me. You'll snag a cot, grub, heck, even a smidge of regard if you're master a grin, eh?" Lila's gut nodded. Harlan dangled no favors sans a snare hooked on. Ethan sensed it too. He stayed mum, but his mandible clenched. Harlan clocked it, which widened his leer. Harlan bent in, breath hot on Lila's ear. "I can scrub your rep clean, doll, or I can scorch it eternal. Hinges on how bad you crave stayin' parched." Ethan slotted between 'em once more. No shove, no bellow, just rooted there, unyielding, a fella declaring halt to the heavens without uttering a syllable. Harlan snorted and ambled off, but he glanced rear once, and that glance promised storm clouds, thick ones. Lila bunched Ethan's jacket fiercer, her tone tiny. "What's he after with me?" Ethan tracked Harlan melt into the tavern. The breeze round him thickened, dimmed. He exhaled slow. Not his aim, his scheme. And here's the riddle you ought to be mullin'. When a snake like Harlan locks onto a soul like Lila, how deep'll he burrow to shatter her outright? Harlan didn't hound Lila straight off. Types like him don't bolt. They bide. They stalk. They pluck the instant that slices deepest. And for Lila, that instant crashed 2 evenings hence. The moon hung low. The swelter still draped the meadow. Cicadas shrill enough to mask a holler. Lila had perched aft the barn on Ethan's claim, mending a rent in one of his chambrays, striving not to dwell on Harlan's leer from the streets. Then, bootfalls crunched the soil. Deliberate, ponderous, off-kilter. She bolted upright, lungs squeezed. She figured it might be Ethan looping back from mending the east fence, but Ethan never ambled so, never scuffed his toe, never trilled that sly serpent tune. 4 shadows peeled from the gloom. Harlan's crew, the very ones who jeered her in Cheyenne, their stares already spilling with their tongues held back. "Howdy, sugar. Boss reckons we chat a spell." Lila retreated till her spine kissed the barn plank. One reached for her sleeve. Not brutal yet, but brutality brewed. She knew. Any gal on the frontier knew. And she did the soul play left. She bolted. She zigzagged the yard, shoeless, swifter than her mind allowed. Her hem caught a rail, but she tore loose and pressed on. She beelined for the river. If she forded the ford, she'd hit the willows. Harlan's pack loathed crashing thicket in pursuit. They bayed, guffawed, blasted once skyward just to spook her, and it landed. She faltered as the boom rippled the flow, but that lone crack boomed wider than they meant, clear to Ethan. He was nigh a league east. He heard it, snapped rigid, and his pony galloped ere his heel found the fender. Lila hit the river ahead. She waded in. Frigid bite nipped her shins. She wheezed sharp. Her soul skated on slick pebbles. Then, motion upstream, a horseman thundering. For a heartbeat, she pegged it as another of Harlan's hounds. Then moonlight kissed his brim, his frame, the outline she'd know blind now. Ethan. He vaulted the saddle ere his pony halted, snared her midriff, and tugged her further in. Not to submerge, to conceal. The reeds loomed tall, the depths inky, his torso flush to her spine. She clutched his wrist just to stand. He breathed hush by her nape. "Hush now. Duck low. They can't plug what they can't spot." Her pulse thumped so fierce she swore the territory rang with it. The flow lapped her sides. Her top molded once more. She sensed his rhythm at her back. Even, serene, like he'd danced this dodge 1,000 turns. Harlan's crew hit the edge. They swept the bend, bickered over prints. One itched to ford, one balked. The last hawked and grumbled she wasn't worth sodden spurs. They slunk off swearing, echoes lost to the sward. Lila wheeled to Ethan at last, her whisper frail. "Why do you keep hauling me clear?" He brushed damp from her jaw. "'Cause you keep calling for it, and 'cause he ain't wrapped up yet. Before we press on, if this yarn's hooking you, hit that follow bell to trail us through the winding rest. Snag a steamin' mug and stick close. Spill where you're tuned in from and what hour the clock's ticking there." Ethan held Lila in the shallows till the final echo died. Only when dusk hushed full, he eased her to bank. She quaked so her chompers clacked. Not the chill, the certainty Harlan wouldn't quit. His breed never did. Ethan cinched his saddle and hoisted her aboard with one sweep. "Hang on, we're riding to the lights." His timber held firm, overly firm, the sort of man musters right afore his core cracks. Cheyenne buzzed as ever, fiddles from the silver spur, dice clacking on felt, fellas hootin' 'cause firewater turns all to jest. Till it don't. The second Ethan strode in, Lila trailing his shadow, the din choked off, every noggin swiveled, lids hooded, hisses curled like haze. Soggy Lila's returned. Eye her get-up, spot who she's ducking behind these days. Lila kept her chin tucked, each glare pricked like briar in her hide. Ethan flanked her, stance broad, braced for the storm. Then Harlan rose from a dim alcove. He clapped, languid, jeering, piercing the tune. "Well, feast your eyes. The Ford Duo. How precious." He closed in, paced just so, enough to rivet every soul. "You know, a filly like her spells grief for a gent," he drawled, his smirk honed. "Hamlet losing shut-eye, buzzin' 'bout her. Bucks going south on wagers what she'll pull next. Dames calling her Jinx." Lila winced. Ethan caught it. Harlan, too, which goaded him fiercer. "Here's the deal, Ethan. I lift her burden. She labors for me. I wipe her slate. I muzzle the tongues. Square swap. You hoard your Ford whisper." Ethan held his peace, but his glare roared volumes. Harlan inched toward Lila. "Hear that, honey? I can redeem you, or I can wreck you. Up to you." Lila tried to retreat. Harlan snagged her arm. No softness, no veil, bold as brass afore the throng. And that's when Ethan surged, swift, keen, relentless. He wrenched Harlan's paw free, rammed him rear till benches gouged the planks. Then one of Harlan's dogs latched Ethan's flank. Ethan whirled and slammed his knuckles home to the brute's gut. Another swung wild at Ethan's chin, and bells tolled fierce in his skull. He reeled a gasp, but he didn't yield. He dug heels and roared back in. A man scrapin' for what he'd die afore losing. The thud boomed. Voices surged. Boards bucked. Spirits splashed. Lila wailed his name, but Ethan was already a bulwark between her and every peril in that den, heaving deep, set for the lot. Harlan daubed crimson from his mouth, his rasp fallen. "You just carved your gravest blunder, fossil." Ethan didn't waver. "Could be, but I won't stand idle while you carve her up. Not once more." The joint plunged to tomb hush. Hush to catch a pin's ping. Hush to sense this brawl was miles from done. And here's the itch you should be scratching now. Once a pillar like Ethan squares off against a fiend like Harlan, what toll'll he foot ere dawn cracks anew? Ethan loomed amid that tavern, knuckles balled, gusts ragged, the crowd poised like vultures circling gore. Harlan locked glares with him, peepers frosted enough to glaze a stream. For a tick, it seemed the globe quit spinning. Then the lawman ambled in, slouch-brimmed lid, wearied mug. Seems the lawman had shadowed Harlan on the sly for a stretch. A missive had slithered his way. A farm widow plumb tired of Harlan's bluster. A clerk down at the assay office had spied Harlan fake a mark. The lawman had lain in wait for a crack like this to spill the beans wide. A soul who'd weathered strife for 4 spans. He scanned Harlan, scanned Ethan, scanned Lila, still jittering in his lee. "What deviltry went down here?" the lawman drawled. The hush deepened. Harlan parted lips, but the lawman waved him mute. "Save it. Tales reached me first. I know your games." Turns out whispers had swirled, soft, sly. Plenty had glimpsed Harlan's wolves slinking Ethan's spread. Plenty had clocked Lila fleeing. Plenty had overheard Harlan spit venom sloshed at his faro den. The lawman closed ranks. "Harlan Crow, you faked deeds. You strong-armed a lass and you sicked your curs on Ethan's turf. I hold affidavits, I hold eyes, and I hold cause to chain you till the thaw." The den exploded. Some wheezed, some whooped. Some shied Harlan's scowl like it might sear. Harlan sprang once. Lawman cleared leather quicker. In a wink, Harlan sprawled with irons round his mitts. His stranglehold snapped there on the tavern grain. As they hauled him through the flap, the air finally loosened. Like thunder rolled off, like a Hamlet's yoke eased a hair. Lila edged to Ethan, her murmur faint. "You might have bled out for me." He wagged his head. "Nah, I breathe for you." The souls who'd sneered her now beheld mute. A handful still breathed soggy Lila soft. A duo of crones kept elbows barbed like doubt lingered. But none dared belted bold this round, not with Ethan rooted like thunder coiled to strike. Some tinged shame, some wonder, some the flavor of esteem she'd never savored a lone hour in her days. Ethan walked her out. The balmy dusk breeze sifted the willows. The river hummed in the murk. Her fingers still danced. The dread didn't fade, but she stretched for Ethan's paw all the same. Not from iron guts, but 'cause she trusted at last somebody'd grip her sure. Lila met his eyes, unshielded now. "What's next?" she breathed. He grinned soft. "Next, you claim the days they swore weren't yours, and you let me flank you every step through." That eve, Lila dozed with the latch unbarred for the first stretch in her years. Ethan perched on the stoop, scattergun athwart his knees, scanning the trail, heeding the gusts, wise that strife might yet slink near. But should it, he'd stand loaded. The settlement'd mutter come morn. Outposts like this always will. But onward, every rustled hitch, for one quiet cause.